Today I'm going to be breaking down this video from Robot Head, Dumb Movies for Dumb People, the Star Wars sequels. So without further ado, let's get into it. Right, I think it's very important that I do a quick briefing of what I'm going to talk about and how I feel, just to clear everything up. So if you don't care to listen, feel free to skip through. But I want to say that I don't have any personal hatred towards Robot Head. I just really don't like how he put everything across and what he put across in these particular sequel-hating videos, such as this one that I'm going to break down. However, I did think this video was important to make so I can get the correct information out there, and I personally wanted to make this video as Robot Head's videos were a large part of the reason why I didn't like the sequels, because I believed everything that came out of his mouth in these videos that was completely biased to be factual. So with that being said, we're going to get started breaking down this video, and if you enjoy, please leave a like and comment your thoughts. I really don't want to come across in the wrong way, so let me know if I've actually come across in the right way, not coming across like someone that hates him or like doubly angry at like him as he is at the sequels. So yeah, let's get started with the first clip that I'm going to break down.
So Last Jedi defenders, get ready to jump into that comment section with those lame Disney explanations that either don't make any sense or are scripted after the films to fill in the holes.
So that little paragraph just explained how the bombs on the bomber ships actually work, which I think is completely fine. We don't need someone randomly asking the question, oh wait, how do these bombs work again? And then someone says how they work, just to explain how they work within the film. No, it didn't fit the plot, so it doesn't need to be said. They don't need to spoon feed us all the information just so small things make sense to us. It is perfectly fine for things to be explained afterwards, whether it be in a book, whether it be in separate movies, separate series, which I do hope we get a sequel series like the Clone Wars. But yeah, we've had many things in the past be like this. Like, we didn't know why only certain people could use the Force. Like, did you need to have a certain thing or anything like that? Well, yes, you actually did. We found out like many years later, 20 to be precise, with the Phantom Menace coming out talking about midichlorians. You needed a high enough midichlorian count to be able to become like a Jedi, be considered Force sensitive, etc, etc. And we also didn't know how a lightsaber worked until we found out about kyber crystals and stuff like that. So I think it's perfectly fine that they didn't explain how the bombs worked fully in the movie, and this has happened with many things. So let's watch the second clip.
And actually, it's quite sad they still exist. Why do they exist? What were they doing for the 30 years after they won? Paul?
What were they doing in the 30 years after they won? Well, it's almost as if the First Order exist. I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they exist, and they taken over the galaxy, and because they are the bad guys, which it is made pretty clear that they're the bad guys, people need to fight back against those being oppressed, just like how the rebels fought back against the Empire. It is the same thing, but if anything, the First Order has a much bigger, like, gap in strength and power to the resistance than the Empire did against the rebellion. You may be asking what they did in the 30 years whilst the First Order was taken over, and that is a better question. That's what I want to hear, and the information about that I don't believe was out at this point, but basically they got arrogant and they didn't think the First Order was too much of a threat until it was too late, and they were like the leading force in the galaxy. Next thing you know, they've got Starkiller Base, and next thing you know, Hosnian Prime has been blew up because they can't do anything about it because the First Order are now much bigger than the New Republic and the Resistance, basically. But going back, the point is, it doesn't matter how the First Order taken over or took over in these 30 years. What matters at this point in the story is that they have done it and that they need to be stopped. So let's get on with the next clip.
Unlike the OT or prequels, this isn't a war with different fronts and battles happening on different planets. Well, not ones that the Resistance are part of. They are just one small, pathetic group.
To be honest, I don't see how this is a critique of the movie at all. How could the Resistance, the group fighting back against the big force, be as big as the Republic fighting in the prequels and the Rebellion, the first stand against the force of oppression? You may prefer the first two wars in the original trilogy and the prequels, and I 100% agree, but it doesn't make it a bad movie or a bad trilogy or any kind of bad plot that this war is like less things happening at once. The resistance is smaller. That doesn't mean it's bad. And if anything, it just emphasizes the strength of the First Order, the fact that the resistance is this like small, they're only doing one battle at a time. And it's actually mentioned in the movie, which you point out yourself, Holdo saying 400 of us were we're the very last of the resistance. And I'll play that clip in a minute that he has in his movie. Not in his movie, in his video. And it just proves that they were bigger before, until like they were slowly wiped out by the First Order and they shrunk in size, showing the First Order strength again. But like, it just really confuses me how you think this is a like proper critique of the trilogy. Like, it's mentioned that they were bigger. We just pick up in the story from when they are really low and struggling, and they have had their numbers significantly reduced.
400 of us. We're the very last of the resistance, but we're not alone. The downtrodden and oppressed know our symbol.
Downtrodden and oppressed? If people feel downtrodden and oppressed, it's your fault. Your side's been in charge for 30 years. Those kids would be shit scared of Rose. It's her side letting them sleep in.
Okay, now this is just wrong. The Resistance have not been in charge for 30 years, or the New Republic. Like, the good guys have not been in charge for 30 years, and we get evidence of this, not directly, but we have things that we're told to work out how like long the First Order have been around. Not necessarily in charge all that time, but we know that they do take over much before The Force Awakens, and I'm going to talk about that a bit later. But what I'm trying to say is, well, don't you understand that the Resistance aren't in control of the galaxy at the moment? It is not their fault that these things are happening to these kids. The First Order are having these people live their bad lives. Yes, it's the New Republic or the Resistance's fault, like, that they let the First Order take over. They're the ones that are losing the war. But, like, the Resistance aren't the bad guys here. And what I said earlier about information on the New Republic that we get from The Force Awakens that this guy just seems to ignore, Hux says that the Republic will be wiped out when Starkiller Base fires on, like, all the different systems. Like, he literally quotes, it will be like the last day of the Republic or something like this. How does he not understand that the First Order rose to power by wiping out the New Republic, and then what was left of it formed the Resistance, and that slowly shrunk to 400 people?
The fire that will restore the Republic.
Light the spark? What are you talking about? The First Order has only been back a day, if only.
A day? Are you serious? This is just blatant ignorance. Like, I'm sorry to get like heated or anything, but this is, oh my god. Throughout the whole of The Force Awakens, we see normal people talk in fear of the First Order, meaning that they've been there a while, and only recently they wiped out all of those planets. Yes, it was the other day, but that doesn't mean they've only existed for a day. They've only rose to power for a day. Like, do you remember what they wiped out those planets with? Oh yeah, Starkiller Base. What, you think they just made that in a day? Who was on Starkiller Base? Like a whole huge army of stormtroopers. They've been around for a while, and we actually have proof of this. With Finn, he was born 11 ABY. The Force Awakens takes place 34 ABY, and Finn was taken as a child. So let's just assume he was taken at 3, because he doesn't remember his family. That means he was taken at 14 ABY, and assuming he was taken on the day the First Order was formed, which it probably wasn't, that means they've been around for 20 years at a minimum. Obviously they wouldn't be as powerful the first day they started to they was at the end, but they were slowly rising for 20 whole years.
Like all of them, I was taken from a family I'll never know.
I understand killing them to survive, but he seems really pumped every time one dies. Except this guy. This guy's sad. Everyone else, he's ecstatic.
Wow! Yeah!
So I've got a few things to say about this one. Firstly, yeah, because now he knows he's fighting for the right cause and what he's doing is actually right. So wiping out members of the First Order, although they may be innocent ones like him, he is weakening a force of badness. And the first time he saw one die, he was sad because he realised for the first time that the First Order did not care about their troopers, did not care about him. And when that one guy died in front of him, no one was bothered, and he was thinking like that could be him. If he'd have died then, no one would have cared. And that really got to him. So then when he joined the Resistance, it was obviously the right thing to do. He was doing the right thing. So he was happy about it. He was finally doing the right thing for the first time in his life.
Turn what is a really interesting story idea of a defecting soldier, and then you just make him a fish out of water buffoon. Who did fly?
Yeah, that's because he is a fish out of water. You think when he was a soldier and a sanitation worker, who has been on Snoke's ship and Starkiller base, and that's probably about it, has ever been to the Canto Bight Casino? Or do you think he's seen a Wookiee, an incredibly rare species nowadays, let alone have someone like talk to them and understand what they're saying? Like, he wouldn't have seen that. That's why he doesn't understand why it's happening. You may be wondering why I'm mentioning like a Wookiee when I didn't show it in that clip, but he basically adds like how Finn didn't like know why Han could understand Chewie in The Force Awakens, but I just shortened the clip because I didn't want to show it all. But yeah, Finn has never seen that happen, so he got confused.
Oh, here we go. Why doesn't Kylo Ren have a scar where Chewie blasted him? He was bleeding and everything. Not even a scratch.
Maybe try and use your eyes. Look how high his trousers or his bottoms or whatever like are. They're covering his waist, which is around the area where he got shot. So you're just making problems out of nothing to bulk up your video hating on Disney Star Wars. He got shot very low down on like his midsection of his body, and he was wearing his bottoms very, very high, likely covering where the shot would have been.
And this one said, why doesn't Chewie go home? Chewie, just go be with your own kind. You're going to outlive all of them anyway. The party's over, buddy. All your friends are dead. Go be with your family.
Because Chewie is a good person, or well, good Wookiee, and he does what is right most of the time. He's now fought in all 3 wars that we've seen. Why would he stop now? If anything, he has more motivation than ever before, because he would obviously blame the First Order on Han's death, because Kylo is like the leader of the First Order at this point in The Last Jedi, and Kylo killed him, and Luke died saving the Resistance from the First Order, so why would he stop now? That just doesn't make any sense. And if you're on about the time between the war, so between 6 and 7, yeah, he did. He went with Han when Han left Leia, and they stuck together. And then he said, go be with your family. Do you know how many Wookiees are left? Well, the answer's not many. He probably doesn't have a family.
Is R2-D2, arguably one of the most loved pop culture icons, and Disney hate him. Stick that hairdryer up.
Had to cut that off there before he said something very inappropriate, but finally, something I at least mildly agree with. Now, emphasis on the mildly. I think it makes sense where R2 is in 7 and 8, as he was in low power mode, as he was upset about Luke. Like, we know R2 has a personality, so it makes sense that he was really quite sad. And the moment Luke could return, he went to Ahch-To with like Rey and Chewie on the Falcon, and they had that like beautiful moment in The Last Jedi where he like reawakens and plays the message of Leia and stuff. But in The Rise of Skywalker, the story is about Rey, Finn and Poe most of the time, and R2 isn't their droid, it's BB-8. Plus, R2, like in The Rise of Skywalker, did still make complete sense. As much as I would have liked to see more of him, he stuck with Leia, as like she obviously died in the end, but he stuck with his only friend that like he knew for a while in that movie. Like, he wouldn't just go with Rey, Finn and Poe because he hardly knew them. The time that they were around the Resistance, he was in low power mode because of Luke anyway, so why would he be with them? Like I said as well, BB-8 is their droid, so he would obviously go with them. 3PO was taken as well, and obviously 3PO would potentially stick with R2 as their friend, stick with Leia as well, but like, he's a completely different droid to BB-8. R2 and BB-8 have the same kind of function, and 3PO could actually be useful in a different way to an astromech, so I think it makes sense that 3PO went. But with that being said, that is this video wrapped up. That is all I want to pick apart from that video of robot heads, and you know, this actually took longer than I thought. I thought I'd be able to include 2 or 3 of their videos in this, but apparently not. So if you enjoyed this, I will be happy to break down another one, as they have done many Star Wars videos with bias and wrong information is, so I would be happy to correct that for you guys. And I think it's quite sad that on this video in particular, 867,073 people had to sit through that, and a lot of them would have done what I did and believe what he said and end up disliking the sequels. I think that's sad to see. But like I said, that's it for this video. Please let me know if you enjoyed it in the comments, and by hitting the like button. Subscribe. I've got a really big video planned for 5K that involves actual Star Wars impressionists. So yeah, thanks for watching, and in a bit.